Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is a presentation about my spring break 2014 trip to Germany. A lot of students have expressed interest in joining me on this trip, so I thought I would give a presentation here that explains the cost structure and the itinerary and kind of what you can expect when you travel abroad with me and with EF College Study Tours. Now this is a Drexel Study Abroad trip. It's an academic program run through the program in criminal justice, and during that trip we'll focus mostly on the legacy of Nazi-era policing. A lot of you have seen the other video and you've toured the website, which is actually behind me, and so you have a pretty decent sense of what we'll be doing over the course of the 8 days while we're in Berlin and Munich. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is give you a better idea of the cost structure and kind of how we go about getting you registered or enrolled in the trip if you're interested in doing that. So behind me is the itinerary. This is actually the website from EF College Study Tours. So what you should know is that EF is the travel organization that is working with me to put the trip together, to make everything work, to buy the airline tickets, book the hotel, all of our transportation. They take care of purchasing the admission tickets for the cultural sites we see. They give us our subway passes when we're in the cities, you know, all that stuff. They basically handle virtually everything. I tell them what I'd like to do, and then they make it happen, including giving us a tour guide, basically 24 hours a day while we are in the country. So we'll probably have one for Berlin and then another one for Munich. I've traveled with EF now several times, and the way it normally works is you catch an afternoon or evening flight, and in this case we'll go out of Philadelphia. You travel overnight to Berlin, and in the morning when we land we'll be met at the airport by our tour guide. We get a bus, load onto the bus, and they take us to our hotel. We drop off our stuff. It's usually around maybe 9 a.m., maybe 10 a.m., depending on when we left and when we land, of course. But it's generally kind of mid-morning by the time we get back to the hotel or to the hotel for the first time. And at that point, the trick is to stay awake. You hate to miss out on one full day because of the sleep thing. So usually what we'll do at that point is do a walking tour of either the central city or hop a subway and go to an interesting part of the city, and go and take a walking tour of the place. And then we often will kind of turn students loose on their own to go get lunch or kind of just explore a little bit within that confined area, whether it's a neighborhood or often it's a city square or an open market or something like that. So there are a lot of options, food options. Hang out for a couple of hours, come back and get back to the hotel, check in, do all that, and then there's usually a dinner on the first night that we host, which is included in your itinerary, and try to hit the hay at a reasonably decent hour that first night. And then the second day is when a lot of the sort of bigger tour activities begin. If you're interested in enrolling in the tour, what you would do is register for CJ 380 for the spring. And as long as you are, if you're a full-time student and you are within your 20 credit allowance, the registering for the class does not cost any more in terms of your tuition, as long as you're under that 20, or up to, I guess, the 20 credit threshold. That's a lot of classes. I don't know many students who take that many classes. I can't imagine registering for 23 credits. So, and I mean, for your own sanity, just as a regular human being, I would sort of discourage that sort of thing. But at any rate, as long as you're within that 20 credit threshold, registering for the 380 trip or the international field experience should not cost any additional tuition. There are, however, course fees, of course, along with this, right? So we have to pay for the tour. So the tour right now is priced at about $2,700. That's not a final firm price, but it is right around there. They've told me anywhere from $2,670 to $2,710, right? So I'm saying it's about $27. You should plan on about $2,700 for the 8-day trip. That includes everything, by the way. That includes airfare, hotel, a bunch of the food, all of our transportation once we get there, and again, admission to all the cultural sites that we're going to see. So once you pay the enrollment or the tour fee, most of what we'll be doing is going to be covered. So because we're going over spring break, that's several months away. The way that EF works is they purchase airline tickets about 95 days out from our departure. So they do this for two reasons. One, as most of you I'm sure know, often the farther out you can purchase airline tickets, the better the deal you get. All right, because the seats aren't quite sold out yet, there's less competition for space. And the goal here is to get everybody onto the same flight. It makes logistics much easier than if we were to kind of come in on different flights. And if we can buy tickets, 3 months out at least, then usually we can get the best price. The only, sort of disadvantage of buying group tickets is that we're not able to purchase the tickets any farther out than 95 days. So it would be great to purchase tickets 5 months in advance, but the airlines don't allow for that. For these group tickets, we have to stay within a 95-day window. So if we start thinking about that, that's roughly January 15th, okay? So if we start thinking about backing this up, we have to close out the tour in time, kind of that last possible moment where we can actually make airline reservations. We don't have to buy the tickets on the day we make the reservations. The reservations will hold for a few weeks, but we have to know by a certain date how many people are going so that our tour folks at EF can start making arrangements. So we've made December 1st the deadline for enrollment. Right? So we'll need, whoever's coming needs to let us know and pay at least a deposit by December 1st. So the total trip cost is approximately $2,700. In order to enroll, you would fill out, I know it's old school, 1990s, but you have to fill out a paper application. And the reason we have you fill out the paper application is so that Drexel can control the enrollment process. So if you've been to the EF website and explored, which I hope you have, just don't pay any attention to the enrollment process and how all that stuff works, because we're going to have you enroll through Drexel, which means filling out this fancy paper application. Okay, so you fill out the application form. You can write you can pay in installments, although the window for the installments is fairly narrow. If you pay by December 1st, you can pay $595. That's the minimum for at least securing your place. And then at some point by January 15th, the balance would have to be paid. So the entire thing has to be paid by January 15th. The reason for that is because that's about 95 days out from our departure, and that's when we can start purchasing airline tickets. So really the airlines control much of this process. Now, I've spoken to a few students here and there and have had email correspondences, and I gave a little bit of misinformation about the cost. I told some folks that EF evaluates the price once a month, up from a given point in time up to the time that the final deadline for departing, and they often adjust the price based on what the airlines are doing at the beginning of each month. I was able to work out an arrangement so that they're not going to do that with us. This is the cost you're going to pay, regardless if you sign up today, right when you get done watching this video, or if you wait until December 1st. The price is $2,700-ish, and so you don't necessarily have to feel pressured to sign up, say, by the end of October, which is when I originally thought students would get the best deal. Now let's talk for just a few moments about the process of arranging the trip and what you can expect when you take this trip. The first thing you should know is that we are not flying some silly little airline with like the first name of somebody as the name of the company. Okay, it's not Frank's Jet Service or whatever. We're actually flying a legitimate commercial airline. Normally when I go to Central Europe with EF, we fly Lufthansa or United, and they're kind of the same thing. But so we have very good flight experiences that way. The hotels that I've stayed in with EF are always very nice hotels. They are not five-star hotels, but they are very solid hotels where I would actually take my family to if we were traveling on vacation to these places. Again, I've traveled with EF several times, and we were in Madrid about a year ago and had a great hotel in the center of Madrid. I just went to London with EF this past, just a few months ago, actually took some students there, and we stayed at a very nice hotel just outside the center of London. So generally speaking, the criteria EF uses when selecting a hotel are that the hotel needs to be in a safe location, it needs to be clean, and they try to ensure that it is centrally located and within a walking distance, within a walk to public transportation, usually an underground subway system. So the benefits of traveling with a tour company that does this for a living is that they make things run like clockwork. And that's been my experience. We take the overnight flight to our European city. We are met at the airport by our tour guide. They have the bus waiting for us. We go to the hotel. The plan is in place. EF knows how to execute the plan, and that's why I like traveling with them. When I call them on the phone, I have the person I deal with. It's always the same person. He knows who I am. So you should know that I've had very good experiences with EF. My students have had good experiences with EF. So there's very little, there are very few unknowns at this point in terms of the travel process. There are always unknowns about the place we're going to, especially if it's your first time. There's nothing like walking off an airplane and having the loudspeaker and the PA system announcing flights in another language. That can be a little bit, sometimes that raises the anxiety level just a little bit, especially if you have to make a connection or if you're trying to figure out, who you're supposed to meet. So that's all part of the international travel process, and that's what you should experience. That's one of the reasons we go. It's great. But EF does a great job of reducing a lot of that anxiety and the uncertainty by having a plan in place before we depart and then executing that plan as we go. I am running this as an academic program, which means that if you decide to enroll and come along, you are eligible to go to the financial aid office and try to get your whether if you're on financial aid, if you're on loans, you can often get the loans or the grants increased to accommodate the cost of the trip because it's considered a course fee. That's one of the reasons I'm running this as a course, so to give students every advantage possible. And I'm not saying it always works. I have, obviously I don't know everybody's or anybody's financial aid situation, but I know that you're at least eligible to go to the financial aid office and talk to them about raising your basically the limits on loans, okay, or grants. And because it's an academic program, there will be a course syllabus, and we'll have some requirements along the way. So here's the way I view this CJ 380 International Field Experience. We're going to be together for roughly, 7 full days, let's say, okay? And if you add up the hours, as I've done, that's 7 full days during waking hours. We'll have more contact hours with each other than we would during a regular 10-week course. So in terms of contact hours, which is how credits are determined, in terms of contact hours, we certainly satisfy the 3 credit criteria for the number of contact hours we'll have. The next question is, what will we do in terms of course requirements? So what I would do is, if you enroll in the trip and you register for the 380 course for the spring, what I would do is we'll have a Blackboard site, and I'll put some readings up on the Blackboard site. It would be important for you to come to Germany, go participate in the trip, having some baseline knowledge of Germany's political structure, their history, and certainly something to do with Germany during the Third Reich. And I've got some really interesting chapters and full books that we can read, okay, that you guys can read, and we can certainly talk about this stuff as well along the way. By the way, that stuff should be very interesting. I mean, we're going there to study the legacy of policing during the Third Reich. So there are some really interesting documentaries. There's some really interesting readings. So just from an enrichment standpoint, that should, I think, would be very fulfilling. But what do I know? I'm just a dorky college professor. I would then ask you to keep a travel log while we were there, and I'd probably pose questions along the way about certain sites we see, and ask you to reflect on these things. Maybe it means creating a word collage, which I'm a big fan of, by the way. They're also called word clouds. They are a great tool for demonstrating how people are experiencing an event or a phenomenon as it sort of unfolds. So we'll probably have you do a few word collages along the way and turn those in and reflect on them. There won't be a paper at the end of this. There are no tests. So I don't want this to become a heavy-duty, traditional paper and exam-driven class. It's not like that at all. That's not how I've set this up. A lot of this is about going on the trip, participating in this cultural exchange, keeping a travel log, which you should do anyway, and giving you opportunities to reflect on the things we see, the experiences we have, and the people we meet. For me, that's the best part about taking students overseas, is just watching that transformation from, the wide-eyed tourist to the traveler. So that's all I have right now for this intro thing. You should know also that if you decide to enroll, or whoever decides to enroll, we will meet a couple of times between, say, the December 1st enrollment deadline and the time we leave. It would be important for us to all sit in the same room and have a conversation about things like, do you need to bring electricity converters, which of course you do. Are there hair dryers in other countries? Yes, there are, of course, but you need the converters. The currency issue, it's always nice to be able to land in a new country with some way of buying coffee, okay? And so, it would be important to talk about how to get euros, what to expect when we land. So we will definitely meet a couple of times. It usually only takes a couple of times, so we need to make sure your passports are all in order, that the names on your passport are going to match perfectly with the names on your airline tickets. So the logistics of international travel are a bit more detailed or in-depth than for domestic travel, but it's okay. We'll cover all of this stuff through a couple of more in-person sessions once I get a sense of who's actually enrolling onto the trip. in the trip. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.